The time has come. We are finally here in the launch of Arc Raiders. And what today's video is going to be about is actually the settings tab in this game. The whole purpose of this video is trying to get you guys the best settings possible as fast as possible to get you guys diving into the Arc Raiders content. Because I'm pretty sure we all know how most of these newer games do their settings. Most of them have so many settings to go through, and it can be very confusing to navigate through. Two more recent examples like Call of Duty and Battlefield have so many settings to navigate through, and honestly it can be kind of overwhelming. So let's go through the settings of this game and get you guys the best settings possible as fast as we can. Okay, so the very first thing you guys should do when the game does start up and put you in this tutorial is hit escape and go to the settings tab right here. And in the settings tab, the first thing you should do is go to graphics, scroll all the way down to in-game performance overlay, and put this on simple or detailed. Pretty much the main point of this is so you can see your FPS in game. And if you do want to turn it on detailed, you can see a few other things that might not be very important to you. So most people will probably like the simple, just showing the FPS counter. I would probably just turn on simple and leave it at that. All right, so now that we can actually see our FPS, we can see what a lot of these settings here are going to do. And try to understand, a lot of these settings are also going to be personal preference. So what I'm going to be focusing on, like visual clarity and FPS, might not be exactly what you are going to focus on for your game. So try to keep that in mind, but regardless, I'm still going to try to give you guys the best settings possible. So the good news is the game actually saved my settings from the server slam. So window mode, we have borderless full screen. So frame generation is kind of a weird one. If you do have a lower end PC that's not pushing too many frames, you might want to experiment with this setting here. It does add a little bit of latency and input delay. So in more competitive shooters, it's definitely not the play to run this, even though it does give you a huge performance boost. But honestly, Arc Raiders is a slower moving game, so in most gunfights, you might not even be able to notice the latency. So once again, if you do want some crazy frame rates, or you are playing on a lower end PC that's not pushing the highest FPS, you could give frame generation a try. But what I'm going to do is leave this disabled. And for VSync, we are going to leave this disabled as well. If you do have a lot of screen tearing and stuff like that, you could try to turn it on to see if it helps, but I would recommend leaving this disabled. And the next setting we have here is AMD Anti-Lag 2. I normally try to leave this setting disabled. I've tried it a few times and never really saw any big difference from it. And if you are using an NVIDIA card, I know they have one called like NVIDIA Boost Plus or something like that, or like Reflex Boost Plus. And I think most people in most games do recommend turning that on. So you guys can actually experiment with this one and turn this on or off to see if you can notice any difference. But for me, I'm going to leave this disabled as well and move on to the next setting here. So for the frame rate limit, we're going to set this to unlimited and let the game get as high of FPS as it can. You could cap this to whatever your monitor's refresh rate is if you want to, but for me, I'm going to set this to unlimited and let the game push out as many frames as possible. And next, we are playing at 1440p at 100% upscaled resolution. The resolution scaling method we're going to be using is AMD FSR3. If you are playing on an NVIDIA card, you need to be using DLSS. It's probably going to bump your frame rate up by quite a bit, so I would definitely recommend using DLSS. As you can see here, we'll test it out. We're going to put this on nothing. And you can see my frame rate goes from 200 FPS from using AMD FSR3 up to about 260. So I would definitely recommend using these upscaling features. And for the AMD FSR3 or DLSS quality, you can mess around with this one if you want to see what looks best for you. If you do want your game to run a little bit faster, you can turn this on performance or even ultra performance. It is going to take a big hit on how the game looks overall. That's why, in my opinion, I think the balanced quality preset looks the best overall and also gives you the best FPS for how it looks. But once again, you guys can experiment with this. If you are running on a lower end PC, you can put it on ultra performance and get some pretty crazy frame rates, as you can see here. Like this bumped us up to over 300 FPS, which is insane. But then of course, your render resolution is going to drop down to 33%, which is going to take a hit on how the game looks overall. This really comes down to the personal preference thing I was mentioning earlier. For me, I think it's worth it to take that step to performance or to balanced. I think it looks great and it gives you some great FPS. All right, and the next setting we have here is field of view, and we're going to set this to a max of 80. You could mess around with this too, and if you want to try zooming it in, you could. Some people might actually like having it more zoomed in than zoomed out, but in terms of it being a third-person game with all the 3-peaking and stuff like that going on, it's probably going to be best to have your FOV set to the highest value. And as you can see here, we have motion blur turned completely off. Every single area in these settings that you can turn motion blur off, I would recommend doing that. Not really good for anything except for like making a video look better, but for performance, you should definitely turn it off. The next thing we have here is going to be ray tracing. And this is going to be one of those preference things I was talking about earlier. If you really like having like shadows and stuff like that, and you like how that looks in game, because to be honest, it does look better with the shadows, you could experiment with this and see what it does for your game and see how it makes your game look. But once again, each individual one that you go up here is going to take a hit on your overall FPS in game. So as you can see here on Epic, we have about 200 FPS. On high, we have about 230. On medium, we have about the same, about 230, 240. And then low is going to give us about pretty much the same, about 230, 240. And then static gives us back up to about 250, 260. So I definitely think it's worth turning this on static. I don't think it makes the game look that much worse overall, and it does give you a nice performance jump. And next, we're going to move on to the quality settings. So honestly, in this tab here, you could just set the overall quality level to medium or high and call it a day. But what I would recommend is definitely going through here with your PC and seeing just what you think, you know, just testing some things out here and seeing what your PC does, how much FPS you can get, but also how well your game looks. So for me, what I went for is view distance being medium, anti-aliasing being low, shadows being low, post-processing being low, textures being medium, effects being medium, reflections being medium, foliage being medium, and global illumination resolution being low. The great thing about this game is when you go over each of these settings, it's going to tell you here on the right what it does. So this one's going to control the quality of reflections effects, has a moderate impact on GPU performance. So it's also going to tell you how much of an impact it has on your GPU. So if you are running a lower end PC, or you're someone who wants as many frames as possible, definitely go through these settings here and make some adjustments. I think this game looks absolutely beautiful even with the low settings, but definitely go through here and test some of these things out for yourself, because most people's PC specs are different, or maybe you're even playing on console, and these settings could definitely give you a nice bump in performance if you need it. And then at the very bottom here, we have idle energy saving and inactive window energy saving. And we just turned both of these off. You could turn them on if you want to. Don't think they really matter too much. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. You could go into a few of these other things here and change some stuff up. This is pretty much just a video about the overall graphics of the game, like how the game looks and what FPS you're getting in game. All the other things in this game here are pretty much personal preference, like your controls or your mouse and keyboard or your controller settings. But I think a few things here in gameplay, like show reload progress and show damage direction, should definitely be turned on. They're going to help you in game quite a bit. And let's try to look through here and see what else there is. Make sure nothing else is being missed. You can turn your output mode to stereo/headphones if you are using those. It's probably going to help make it sound a little bit better. And I would also recommend coming to the accessibility tab and actually adjusting your crosshair. This game does let you make whatever crosshair you want to make, so I would definitely recommend making one here. It's going to be much better than the one they give you by default. So for example, here's the one that I made. I think it looks much better than the one they give you by default. So if you guys do want to copy this crosshair, I will leave this here for just a second. But that's pretty much everything in terms of settings. I really hope you guys enjoyed this game at launch. I'm super excited to see what this game can turn into. And I am really excited to start making content on this game for you guys. If you guys do like the Arc Raiders content and you want to see more Arc Raiders content in the future, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And thank you so much for watching.